your mother. It's time for another episode of Birds with Friends. Just some high-flying, ran fast vertical stems of professors from Penn watching eagles eat and pray like Pazookies on birthdays. It's Philadelphia, Marissa, Bo, and Zach kicking it. Cooler than 3 penguins till Zach runs off with his valet keys. He's a real nuanced goose. Pull up a branch, get loose. It's time for some juice on some
Birds with Friends.
The early bird gets the worm but prefers getting turned like a turn on some
Birds with Friends.
Marissa, Bo, and Zach are here to squawk. Don't miss the mistress talk on some.
I have a radio hit that I'm late for. I'm gonna give my prediction. You guys can stick on. Is that okay?
Unbelievable. Now we find out who has priority. This is ridiculous.
We've been on for an hour and 35 minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Looking forward to the post-game pod.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Birds with Friends on a Monday afternoon from Indianapolis, just outside the Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Bo Wulf, Zach Berman, Marissa Dunn here for Birds with Friends. Marissa, happy anniversary.
Thank you. I'm so excited we're in person together. This is awesome. Couldn't ask for a better way to start the week or start my anniversary.
Yesterday was the anniversary, right?
Yeah.
Nice meal with Michael.
Yeah.
A little bit far out of town, but we can get to that
okay. It was
another
worth
time.
it.
It was a long day of driving. Did they need another 25 minutes in the car?
He looks for the best.
He's definitely listening to this, like rolling his eyes so hard right now.
No, Michael looks for the best for his wife. I respect that.
Yeah, he found the best spot. He found the very best Arby's there was in Indianapolis.
And all of it, exactly how everyone wants to spend their first wedding anniversary in Indianapolis with their significant other.
Now, what is Michael doing here?
So Michael,
are we allowed to talk about this?
Yeah, I think so. Michael was invited to be an offensive line mentor for the combine.
Oh,
so,
must be nice.
Yeah, super exciting. So we're both here working this week, which is pretty cool.
Power couple, combine power couple.
Yeah, so we're spending a lot of time in Indy and excited to be here. Excited to see you guys, everyone else at the company. It's been great.
Beautiful Indianapolis for you guys. Nice rainy day that you've got. And we had a little day of athletic meetings here in Indianapolis ahead of tomorrow's press conferences from Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni. We got a lot to get to. We haven't spoken since, the Tuesday of Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think you guys
aftermath.
are bearing the lead. You guys both took vacations too. We always get on my stuff. You need to talk a little bit about your trips.
I'm just thrilled to be here. And
Zach doesn't want to do that.
We got the house that Reggie Miller built behind us. When you're at like a company event with Bo, it's honestly it's like Peyton Manning at a quarterback convention. He's a big deal at these things. So it's neat to be with it's neat to be with Bo here, and I love the combine. It's my 10th combine because there wasn't a combine in 2021. So my 10th time here in Indy. Always.
Of course, the greatest tragedy of the coronavirus pandemic was that there was no combine in 2021.
I wasn't suggesting such. I was simply giving you the math for why this is my 10th combine, entering my 12th year on the beat.
But that's also assuming that everyone listening knows that you started on the beat in whatever year that was.
I'm not assuming that. I was simply giving context for this conversation. But no, the combine is an important time on the NFL calendar. It's effectively the start of the offseason. I know they talk about the Senior Bowl like that.
And what a long offseason it was.
Yeah, you guys
what
got
a
a
long
whole,
interim it was since the end of the Super Bowl. Yeah.
I mean, look, that's well, not for us, but for the Eagles, that's like a first world problem, right? You go to the Super Bowl, you have a short offseason. You can't complain about that, or a short period of time before the offseason begins. But I
don't like the word short, but
this is the start of the offseason. Short's relative, right?
Yeah.
This is the start of the offseason because the league calendar technically starts in March. But this year is when the league convenes. They start discussing free agency. There's standardized testing for the draft prospects. It's a big time on the NFL calendar. It really is a league convention. So important that we're here. It's a big athletic convention to do on today, like you mentioned. And I'm excited for the podcast ahead. I don't call it the off season. I call it the non-playing season. And it's a time when we know the data shows the interest this time of year.
Is that what you say when people, normies ask you about what you do in the off season? You say it's not the off season, it's the non-playing season?
I don't correct them, but I'll call it the non-playing season.
Okay.
I'll feel like there's the playing season.
The NPO.
Yeah. I think I actually think Rich Eisen says that. So I might be stealing it from
not the most handsome Rich I know, unfortunately. Okay. I mean, listen, we haven't really fully like unpacked the Super Bowl, I guess, in the aftermath of it. I know that that's like a crazy thing to say. It's 2 weeks later, and I think that Eagles fans, I don't want to speak for them, but like there's still that is still very much lingering, obviously, that it's hard to sort of turn the page. But the truth is, I mean, this is a fascinating offseason ahead where we've got a lot to talk about. Starting, of course, everybody wants to know, when is Flu World Order going to happen? What's going to happen with Flu World Order? What are going to be the rules this year? Is there a chance that Flu World Order, gets bumped because one of the players is already re-signed? Believe me, we've had discussions. We're going to do it at the end of this week. There's a chance that it may be a mistake. Something could come first, but we'll try to get to that. I know Zach has been itching to get to, I forget the name of the draft, when we rank the likelihood of the futures contract players signed to be on the roster at some point. But
as well.
You were on vacation. You're texting me, when are we going to do that thing? When are we going to do that thing? We'll get to it. We got other stuff to get to. But there's a lot going on right now because of all the free agents that they have, because of the coaching searches that are going on. And I think that's probably a good place to start, Zach, with sending it over to the Stone Cold Newsman himself with the latest on the Eagles coaching search, looking for 2 new coordinators.
So the Eagles still don't officially have offensive and defensive coordinators, but we're certainly expecting Brian Johnson to get promoted to offensive coordinator. That's the general expectation. And then defensive coordinator, they, as Eagles fans have been following, they've cast a wide net there. According to NFL Network, Sean Desai, the former Bills defensive coordinator, for currently Seahawks
Bears,
assistant.
rather.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
I'm sorry. Bears defensive coordinator, Seahawks assistant head coach. Spent time with Temple earlier in his career.
T for Temple
He's in Philly for a second interview today. Denard Wilson, also a candidate for that job. There have been other people who the Eagles have interviewed, including Vance Joseph, who went to Denver. Glenn Schumann, the Georgia defensive coordinator, staying in Georgia. That came out from ESPN today. Then Jim Leonard is not taking the Eagles' job. I believe he's taking a year off. There was also a report from Mike Garafolo that the Eagles talked to Jesse Minter, Michigan's defensive coordinator, and Chris Shula, who is an assistant coach with the LA Rams. So certainly something to monitor there. But I would pay attention to Sean Desai and Denard Wilson at this point. As far as a timetable, I've been asked, do they need someone by the combine? Like how can you scout without? I don't think that's as huge a deal. I think, honestly, the combine is usually the first time that coaches are getting their eyes on these players if they weren't at the Senior Bowl. Sometimes they're at the Senior Bowl. But, the combine, a lot of it is scout-driven more so than coach-driven per se. It helps to know the scheme, but as Nick Sirianni said, you were at that press conference 2 Thursdays ago, that there could be some flexibility with the scheme, but Nick Sirianni has a general direction for what he wants this defense to be. And so I think they know the types of players.
It's kind of a weird answer, though. I don't want to. You have to close out the news report first.
And then just closing out the news report. The Eagles signed a bunch of players to futures deals. If the league year starts in 2 weeks, there's going to be a lot going on here. Back to you in the studio.
Thanks, Zach. Michael Clay also reportedly signed a 1-year extension that included a raise, according to Aaron Wilson.
And Nick Sirianni said he's coming back. So, yes.
Well, yeah, but Nick Sirianni said he's coming back 2 Thursdays ago. Today, news broke that he actually signed an extension and
gotcha.
Okay. Nick Sirianni says a lot of. Doug Peterson said Carson Walsh was coming back. And that was 2 weeks ago.
Were you expecting him not to?
No, but why did you have to correct the actual news that happened today with something that was?
I was adding context, but yes. Where's yours?
There's one thing I forgot for this episode. I have some gifts for you guys, courtesy of Defop Tony Ascenda. So I'll bring those to the show. I'll bring those to the show tomorrow. But this is rude of me because I didn't bring something specifically for Marissa, but I do have something for Zach that I'd like to pass along. Just a gift from me to you. Here you go.
I'm scared.
That's for you.
Oh, DCA Airport. It's a regular airport. Mini pretzels. That's the gift. It's a pretzel wrapper.
I know how much you love DC. Doesn't that make your heart move to see the
I kind of think
the image of the nation's capital?
Well, that's not no, seeing the Capitol gets me excited.
Yeah, but doesn't that
there.
conjure the image in your mind? Doesn't that make you think of President Bartlett and the great experiment?
The great experiment.
I think the fact that Bo thought that said DCA on it, and to save a rapper for you, that's his love language to use that.
I mean, my goodness, going through the airport with the how long do you have this rapper? Where's this from?
That's from yesterday's flight.
So you weren't actually at the
No, they
airport.
served us on the flight from Philadelphia to Indianapolis mini pretzels with the DCA logo. So
Gotcha.
I saw that and I said, "Wow, Zach's gonna love this."
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you. It's a nice sentiment. I've never been given an empty pretzel wrapper before as a gift, so I appreciate it. On the flights, I always prefer the pretzels, and I'm a cookie guy, you know that. But those I much prefer the pretzels.
Absolutely.
Michael gets the biscuits every time.
The Biscoff.
Yeah, and I can't eat it because I'm gluten-free, and he always tells me to still get it, so he can have two.
So you won't get to eat any food?
No, and then he eats mine.
That's tough.
But I always think they don't look appealing.
The pretzels are high variance because sometimes you get ones with no salt at all, but still preferable to.
I prefer no salt, actually. So
really,
yes.
Loser.
This guy's salty over here.
Yeah.
Those So I sometimes ask for the pretzels, and it's not like a multiple choice thing. If you're on JetBlue, they give you a potpourri of options. So
yes, they got. I will tell you. Yesterday on the flight, they offered the pretzel or cookie choice.
Okay, nice.
Yeah,
it's my flight. They only had the cookie.
And how about on your drive from Wisconsin?
We did stop. Michael got Annie Ann's.
Okay. I got pretzel. All right.
Got a pretzel
with
the cinnamon one, so that's almost like a cookie. I had some gluten-free snacks, but
okay.
I honestly slept. He did the driving, so
really?
I have to give him some credit for that. Yeah.
Okay.
But nothing as great as a pretzel wrapper that says DCA.
So he was cool with that?
Yeah.
Nice.
And he was very quiet and let me sleep. Yeah.
There was one time, I think I've told this story, when Bo and I stayed in Madison, Wisconsin before a Packers game, and we went for this huge breakfast. I don't want to call it a brunch because it was a Thursday, but it was like
you can still have brunch on Thursday.
It was like an early
late breakfast though, yeah.
Late breakfast, early lunch,
and they just piled.
I'm telling you, it was
it was monster.
You could tell why Wisconsin breeds offensive linemen. This was like such a huge meal, and it had a milkshake with it too. And I got in that car and I just passed out. I said, "Bo, do you mind?"
I don't think you said, "Bo, do you mind?" You just passed out. I didn't.
Did you mind?
Not at all. I didn't mind at all.
Listen to the podcast.
I thought it was totally fine.
I felt so bad.
Was his mouth open?
Huh?
Was his mouth open?
That's a good question. He might have been snoring at one point. It's possible,
Really?
but I don't.
I'm not a snorer.
But I think I thought it was totally fine. But your wife thought that it was rude that you.
Yes,
that
exactly.
You slept. Yeah.
Exactly.
I didn't think it was rude at all.
Yeah, you tried to be a good conversationalist in the car.
No, that's fine. I mean, how could you top a podcast in terms of a conversationalist?
Fair.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. Really news heavy start to this episode.
This is what happens when you get the. So I was actually thinking about this when I was packing my mic, which we're not using here. But the Combine is the site of some of our greatest hits, at least since I've been on the show.
Funny Pauline, the valet story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that there's when we're together, there's a different dynamic.
No doubt.
Than when we're in our respective rooms. So credit to Marissa for putting this. We're in a conference room that Marissa found here.
That I illegally just took. No, it was supposed to be a room for someone in the company, but
this table
I just said
here,
we're using it.
This table was the table that our lunch was served on.
Yep.
That Marissa eyeballed it.
We dragged in here.
Yeah, we brought it in here. We set the chairs up. I made sure we had this backdrop. When the talent showed up, we were ready to go. So,
wow,
I was there on time. I mean,
I will say Zach was instrumental in the backdrop. So if you're watching on YouTube and you like the arena behind us, that was all Zach.
If you think Zach cares about like the written word and the stories that he writes, that's nothing to him. The real passion that he has in terms of curating the perfect experience is in backdrop.
Yeah. Well, I'll give credit. My wife Emily, she's watching actually right now. And,
huge shout out to
she's
Emily.
very cognizant of like when we're on video that it's a visual medium, right? Like what's your backdrop? You know, do you look presentable? Things of that nature. So I give credit to her.
And how do you know that she's watching? Has she given you live feedback that we can share?
I got a text actually. I saw it on my on my watch.
And
No, she just said I'm watching.
oh,
Yes.
And again, shout out to both of your
Oh,
wives
and cheers.
for again holding down the fort while you guys are away.
yeah, just
Yet again.
right again.
She does have feedback actually. Why is Marissa sitting behind you? Do you want to answer that?
Well, because I have my computer up
Okay,
just to
yes.
monitor the feed because I want to make sure that it's all running smoothly because, you know, we don't want any dropouts or anything like that.
That's right.
A lot of important things to talk about here.
All right, Zach. Let's talk about this search.
Yes.
First of all, do you find it curious that there have been no reports at all of outside interviews for offensive coordinator?
No, I am not. Now they do have to.
They
and
do
I
have
believe-
to, right? By the
believe
Rooney
they
Rule, they
have.
have to.
Yeah. They don't. It doesn't have to be publicly announced.
Right.
Yeah, it's a fair question. I'm not surprised by it because I mean, everyone I've talked to, the expectation is that's an internal hire. And as Nick Sirianni said at that press conference, it's his offense, right? So it's a little different than the defense, and that's something we.
But he's not the play caller. It's an attractive job.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't think it's as it's attractive job because you're the offensive coordinator of the Philadelphia Eagles, right? But I also think the expectation is that they promote Brian Johnson.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the real reason. But
No, I think you always.
and you know what was interesting, because you called this out on our last podcast, and then Sirianni fell into the trap that you cautioned against, which was, you know, don't just describe Brian Johnson as a good fit because he knows Jalen Hurts,
Yeah.
and it's like the first thing that Nick brings up.
Yeah,
It bothers me a little bit. Yeah,
it bothers me when Brian's described that way. And look, I'm not
first
dismissing
name
it.
basis. All right.
Would you rather me call him like Coach Johnson? Brian, his name's Brian. I'm calling him Brian.
BJ, I don't know.
Well, you're on a nickname basis. You're on an initial basis. You see him and you're like, "What's up, BJ?"
Yeah,
I say,
B. John.
yeah. If I run into him this week, I'll say, "What's going on, Brian? How are you? How's the family? That kind of thing." Yes.
Okay.
So
And he'll say, "You are."
I'm not trying to flex. I was certainly. I hope he knows my name.
Okay.
But can we edit that out?
No editing.
No editing.
That was a joke. We're live here. No, it doesn't surprise me that I figured we would hear a name, but I'm expecting that to be Brian Johnson. I do think it's a fundamentally different job than the defense. The defense, you're essentially you're the head coach of that side of the ball. And I don't think that's the case with the offense. You're the play caller, but you're not bringing in your offense. You're running Nick Sirianni's offense. I shouldn't say that. You're running the Eagles' offense. And I also think there's people, Kevin Patullo, Jeff Stoutland. These guys have big roles in this too. It really is a group effort. And that's not to belittle what Shane Steichen did, but I think there was more autonomy on the defensive side of the ball.
Oh yeah, no doubt. And it does seem like all indications are that will be Brian Johnson's job. But you want your team to treat the interview process
Absolutely
thoroughly, which they're doing on defense.
Yeah.
But it's just odd we haven't heard anything on offense.
We talk to Nick tomorrow. We'll find out more then. But no, that's a good question. And as far as the interview process, I would do what they're doing I would always talk to as many people as possible.
Absolutely. Find
Find out different ideas. This is how you meet different coaches who you might not know. I never liked the idea of like just hiring from your network, right? Because there's a degree of like pomposity to think that the only coaches who are good coaches are those you've already met.
Sure.
Or those you've worked with. So yeah, meet different people, talk to different people.
This is like the entire scope of like, hiring diversity is about not just, extending beyond your network. That's the entire point. So
yeah. And look, you want people that if you want people you can work with, right? But so you're not bringing in someone from like a totally different scheme. Someone runs a Wishbone, but still, I think you want to hear.
I always liked the show Wishbone with the little dog.
There
Did
was
you watch that as a kid?
No, but
No.
Jeez.
I don't know if it's still there. There was like a chicken tender place in Philadelphia called Wishbone, which I liked.
Okay.
What's
the story, Wishbone?
So, as I was saying, but you want to hear different philosophies for your offense. You want to hear how they can utilize different players, and it's like, I've already asked the question to a bunch of people, like, how can our coverage be better, right? I would ask coaches, like, how can our coverage be? How could our offense be better? How could Jalen Hurts improve? What ideas do you have? Because then you can implement it. It's a way of really getting external evaluations of your team. So I never think you should rush the interview process.
Yeah, I agree. And there's also no need to rush because all the other staffs are basically filled. Have the Colts hired a defensive coordinator?
Gus Bradley's staying.
Oh, that's right. Okay, so there is no competition for those jobs, so they can take their time.
Yeah, and I also think too that in some of these cases, the Eagles like to announce everyone at once, so they could have hires that just aren't officially announced either.
Well, that helps us transition to the defensive side of the ball because it has obviously been more extensive, and you talked about the candidates. I wrote earlier this week about, Nick Sirianni's, he said in the press conference. Thank you. Would you call it a column?
It had Wulf in front of it.
Yeah, but I didn't put Wulf there. I don't know why they put that there.
I thought you did.
I don't.
Okay.
I got some headline complaints that we can unpack at a different time. I would not have considered that a column. That was a story. I would have written it different if it was a column.
I was actually wondering that.
Yeah, I didn't know why the Wulf was there. It wasn't there on the main headline either.
Such a well-reported piece here.
Yeah, why was it? What was that about?
I was wondering that, but
there's no column.
So that's why but nonetheless,
that was that's like the thing that I was working on all Super Bowl week was getting those answers.
I thought, that's right. I like there were voices we don't usually hear because the assistant coaches don't talk as much.
Yeah, it was.
And I thought they gave really good perspective in that.
But this, you can read the story. We can do the whole tease thing. But guys on the staff have talked about, and the reason I was asking about it is because I had heard this before. Is that like Nick first name basis has been intentional. Nikki Sears. I don't know. Has been intentional about. Trying to what amounts to professional development for coaches, right? So like what's going to be your next step? How do I best prepare you for that? That doesn't mean he's going to be effective at it, but it's something that he's tried to be intentional about. Obviously, it to some degree helped Jonathan Gannon and Shane Steichen land head coaching jobs because it was part of it was like about the interview process.
And both talked in their introductory press conferences about what they've learned from Nick in their 2 years. So
right. So you can understand that, he said in his press conference last week that his gut instinct is to hire from within because those are the people that he trusts and he's invested in their development for the reasons that we just talked about. It's important to cast your net wider, but I think that, well, let me ask you this. Jannard Wilson or the field, who are you taking?
Question.
Because Nick, we didn't even talk about Nick Rallis, of course, the linebackers coach. He left to become a defensive coordinator for Jonathan Gannon. It was funny because of all the guys I talked to in the Super Bowl week about are you prepared for the next job and stuff like that? Rallis was the one who was nah, I don't know. I don't have a notebook for that. I'm happy to just be a linebackers coach. Okay.
It's funny because I kind of always thought he was going where Gannon was going. So
that was that's what we had heard.
And
maybe he didn't have to prepare for the interview.
Yeah.
He knew he had an in.
Although he said he had a press conference last week that I watched, and he said that he had a few other opportunities to interview for defensive coordinator jobs. So maybe he thought he was going somewhere no matter what. I think his contract, I think he had that flexibility maybe. Although
it was. I mean, he didn't take the interviews before the Super Bowl, so it could have only other been Indianapolis or Denver, right? So maybe he's or he knew that Gannon was getting
maybe
the job.
he did interview and they didn't come out. I don't know.
I think we're just learning that Nick Rallis maybe doesn't tell the truth that often. That's
Commanders released quarterback Carson Wentz.
Yeah, I didn't want to interrupt you
Yeah,
guys, but
I just got that alert.
Yeah.
Carson will go on. No, we expected this. But going on his fourth team in 4 years if he's playing football.
if he's playing football. Do you think he plays football next year?
I can't see Carson as backup somewhere.
I feel like I called this 2 years ago. I said he's going to be out of the league in 3 years.
We do about 8 podcasts a week. So sure. On one of them you called it. On another one you didn't.
Good point.
Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, I think
I'm going Denard Wilson, but that's close though. That's close.
Yeah. Now, Sean Desai, from what we know, you talked about his background. There's like he's sort of like given the he's like a Vic Fangio tree guy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's exactly entirely accurate. He's coached under a lot of people, right? But
not in the NFL, right?
Sure,
he was with the.
But he's got his own philosophy. It's not like
exactly.
just hiring Vic Fangio.
And by the way, Pete Carroll runs a totally different defense, and he was with Pete Carroll last year, so he can blend some different concepts. And he was under Al Golden, I believe, at Temple. Al Golden runs a different scheme, so I think he was the Al Golden era. If
yes, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, he absolutely predated the rotten scoundrel devil himself. Steve Adazio.
Okay, you had to clarify that because they had a few recent coaches.
Yeah, I mean, there's only one true evil in the podcast, in the Birds with Friends universe, and that's Steve Adazio. So anyway, I think tell me about the other two guys, Shula and Minter. What do you know about them?
Jesse Minter, defense coordinator at Michigan. They had a really good defense this past year. Anyone who watched Michigan knows that. He replaced Mike McDonald, who went to the Ravens. And it was
Minter with the Ravens?
Yeah,
before?
there's kind of
so like they're just like trading.
Trades.
Like,
Jim and John just trade defensive coaches. His father, I believe his father, Rick, was the linebackers coach for the Eagles under Chip Kelly.
Yes.
And so, but yeah, Jesse Minter was also the Eagles had a coach, an assistant coach one time, Trent Miles, if you remember him. He was here under Peterson, and he was a head coach at Indiana State.
That must have been the year I was.
Georgia State. No, he was with the team in 2017, I believe.
Okay.
He was kind of like an under the radar guy, but Google Trent Miles, okay? But I'm sorry, please.
I'm on it.
I apologize. I didn't mean to.
Wow. What do you want me to check?
Trent Miles.
Yeah. What about?
What year was he with the Eagles? Anyways, Jesse.
2017 to 2021.
Literally when Bo was on the beat. And anyways, Jesse Minter was on his staff at Indiana State, Georgia State, I believe, right? So anyways, so that's Jesse Minter's background. Chris Shula,
I hope if they hire Jesse Minter, he's got a slightly more dynamic personality than his father.
You and Rick.
I like Rick, but I mean, I think he was like the most stoic football guy I've ever seen. So Rick, I don't know that his face ever changed.
So Rick Minter had a coaching staff at Cincinnati that included 3 NFL coaches. Can you name them? 2 can you name?
Oh, I love it, Zach.
3 NFL head coaches.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I believe this was the case.
I'm pulling it up.
They're not current head coach. I mean, one's not current head coach, but has been.
Oh.
I'll just give it to you. It's better podcast.
Okay. Give me their initials.
RR.
Rich Rodriguez.
No. NFL head coach? No, Rex Ryan. MT.
Mike Tomlin.
Yep. And JH.
John Harbaugh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah. So that was like
wait. They were coaches underneath him. Okay.
At Cincinnati. Yeah. Someone can look that up.
Rex Ryan. Wow.
I know Rex Ryan and Tomlin. I did a story actually on the 2 of them on the staff, and I think I spoke to Rick Minter at the time for that story. That was in 2000.
Coached Vinnie Curry
at Marshall.
Yeah.
Correct. So
got one on him. Yeah, baby.
So So and then Chris Shula. Honestly, yeah. I mean, don't know as much about him, but I know he's from.
Where in the Shula family tree is he? That's a serious question. I don't. Who is he related to? Whose son is he? Or brother or? Do we know?
I think he's the nephew of Don.
Okay.
So,
Wow, we've really done our homework on these candidates.
anyways, so that's who we.
Wow, he's an
heard of
86
us before.
baby.
What's that?
He's an 86 baby.
Okay. Anyways, that's
He's
kind of where the Eagles
Dave's
stand.
son,
Dave
son of Dave Shula.
former coach of the Cincinnati Bengals, correct?
Yes, and current defensive backs coach for the Los Angeles Rams. That makes
No,
him.
Chris is the defensive backs coach.
He was.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yes,
yeah. So
He's also the grandson of Don
yes,
and the nephew of Mike.
that's okay. Sorry about that. So, anyways, what I was saying there is I would think either Denard Wilson or Sean Desai, and
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think those are the two front runners.
so Sean Desai, he brings you defensive coordinator experience. He has 2 years, I believe, with the Bears, and he's been in different systems, but he's from that Vic Fangio tree. Denard Wilson's been in different systems too, by the way. If you're hiring Denard Wilson, you're not just hiring
Greg Williams is his boy.
The continuity. Yeah, I mean he was in that Greg Williams, Jeff Fisher defense, which is actually for Eagles fans who are unfamiliar with it, it would remind you of the Jim Schwartz defense, right? So the Eagles had there's I don't know what Denard Wilson's ideas would be for this scheme, but you can blend kind of the last two defenses that the Eagles potentially had. But we talked about this on the last pod when we talked about these coaching changes. A big thing with the defense in particular is you don't know what your personnel is going to be, right? I mean, we know Hassan Reddick and Josh Sweat are going to play the edge. We know Darius Slay is going to be a cornerback on this team. We don't know anything. I mean, we know Jordan Davis is going to be a big part of this defensive line.
This is also the continuation of the conversation we had last offseason about the heavy emphasis on now that we know the coaching staff and we know what they want, we can draft for that. Well, guess what? 1 year later, the coaching staff is gone. And did you draft Jordan Davis just for Jonathan Gannon? Yeah, I mean, that's a useful prototype player to have on any defense, but it's kind of a nice backup survival mechanism for the person in charge of making the picks to say, we're picking the guys that fit the scheme, because then if they leave, not only can you pin it on them, but then it's like you're starting the clock. It's also like a reasonable thing to do, because if you're going to get the most out of a player, it needs to fit with what you have, right? That's a learned experience, but it's maybe not the perfect way to do things.
No, and I'm with you there. It would be a major mistake if they drafted Jordan Davis to fit that certain role. I mean, it certainly helps if you say he can play this role in day one, and then as he develops into something more. But you draft Jordan Davis because there aren't that many people on the earth who are like Jordan Davis, and you say he has these tools, and we can develop him. I mean, it's a similar conversation that we could have in a few weeks about Darnell Washington. But
who now?
What's that?
Who is that now?
The tight end from Georgia, Darnell Washington. How far are you on your draft prep, by the way? Have you?
You're looking at it. This is
okay. I was really heavy in it, but I made a major mistake that caused, it didn't cause a car accident, but I was as fuming as I've been in a long time.
Okay.
And I probably shouldn't.
Was it a bad backdrop?
I shouldn't admit this, but this was up. I take ownership. I take accountability. Okay. In my mock
without
draft,
accountability, there's no nobility.
in my mock draft last week, we all had to do mock drafts. Every team, when I say every team had to do a mock draft, and I originally was only going to do a 3-round mock draft because you can't really predict 7th round players at this point, right? I mean, and so I added last minute, I added the 2 7th round picks, and one of the 7th round picks I put a player from Georgia, safety, Tyke Smith. He's from Philly. Who
notice that you were going to let a Philly guy go and take
him. Who was like a great player or a really productive player at West Virginia, transfers to Georgia, and he was injured 2 years ago, was a role player, and I thought his eligibility expired. Right, he's been in college for a long time, but there's extra eligibility now, and he went back. But it's one of these things that I didn't have a standardized. I was looking at I guess I was looking at an outdated list, and I was like, you don't want to pick a safety that was going to go in the 3rd round and pick him for the Eagles in the 7th round. So I was looking at I was looking at safeties with undrafted grades, and I picked him. And then I got a text from someone. I was at my children's school for something, and I got a text
From Jeffrey?
Not from Jeffrey, from someone in the NFL being like, I think he went back to Georgia. Look at this. And I was like, besides myself, right? And I was so frustrated. I scrambled. I replaced it with Avery Young, who's a Coatesville native from Rutgers, who definitely is going out in the draft.
So I think there's a part of this where you could probably blame the assignment itself that required you to have a 7th round projection despite being a week removed from the Super Bowl. That's one thing that you could say. But I do want to know where this ranks on your level of, like on your list of professional mistakes. Is that number 1?
I was really high up there.
Really? That high up?
I think it's there's been a lot of players that have decided to go back. So I don't think I'm sure a lot of people have dealt with similar things over this past year.
Well, so what I should have done,
when you edited it, did you include an editor's note that said this previously included?
100%.
Okay, good.
I sent Josiah the note.
Okay.
And, 100%. Put that in there.
Yeah.
And
your journalism professors would be very proud of you, Zach.
But no, so what I should have done when I did that mock draft is I should have done the one of the simulators. I didn't do that. I did like the list, from this pool, from this pool, from this pool. But I want to bring that up because I guess.
So what was number 1
for mistakes?
Biggest professional mistake, yeah.
Biggest professional mistake. I don't know. I'd have to think about that one.
As if you haven't already thought about it.
Yeah, we'll get to that off camera. I don't need to discuss that here.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
Lines being crossed.
What's it? No. There was no. I misspelled a name one time.
Okay.
And that really frustrated me.
Yeah, I could see that.
So
we used to get F's in college for doing that.
Thanks. Now you're rubbing it in. Yeah. And it was in.
Like in a class, that's what they, how to teach you not to do it. Yeah.
It was in the hard copy of the paper, and it was the last name of an agent. And there was a lot. It was a long name, and I think I don't know.
Before you in Rosenhaus.
No, that one I could. It was the last name. I'll give a shout out to Ed Wasilewski.
Okay.
That's a tough one.
And
Ed W, as he's known around here.
I did a story on the life of an agent leading up to the draft,
and it was all about him.
And I spent 3. Now it wasn't. Fortunately, it wasn't the first. It was like a reference later on in the story. But still,
you know what? Now that's on you, but the copy editor's got to catch that too.
It wasn't every reference. That would have been if the headline.
Yeah.
If the subject. Yeah. No, it was later on in the story, and
they got to be checking that too. I mean,
No, that's I'm responsible. It has my name on the top. I'm
sure, but
that's highest on my list of professional mistakes.
I think it could be worse.
Yeah,
it could be a lot worse.
It's really not that bad.
We really didn't have to go down this path. I did want to talk about the draft, but we can talk about that next segment. We should round up the coaching.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's take a break. We'll be back with more on Birds with Friends.
You can tell when you're using a cheap razor based on the nicks and the cuts and the irritation. And then there's the annoyance of subscription razors when you're waiting for the cartridges to arrive, or you can't believe how much you just spent on them. That's why you must meet Henson Shaving. Henson Shaving is a family-owned aerospace parts manufacturer that has made parts for the International Space Station and Mars rover, and now they are bringing precision engineering to your shaving experience. Razor blades are like diving boards. The longer the board, the more wobble. The more wobble, the more nicks, cuts, and scrapes. A bad shave isn't a blade problem, it's an extension problem. By using aerospace-grade CNC machines, Henson makes metal razors that extend just 0.0013 inches. That's less than the thickness of a human hair. That means a secure and stable blade with a vibration-free shave. And it gets better. The razor has built-in channels to evacuate hair and cream, which makes clogging virtually impossible. Seriously, Henson Shaving wants the best razor, not the best razor business. That means no plastic, no subscriptions, no proprietary blades. The Henson razor works with standard dual-edge blades to give you that old-school shave with the benefits of new-school tech. Once you own a Henson razor, it's only $3 to $5 per year to replace the blades. I'll admit that affordability is attractive to me. Only $5 a year in blades, that's a good sale right there. It's time to say no to subscriptions and yes to a razor that'll last you a lifetime. Visit hensonshaving.com/birds to pick the razor for you and use code BIRDS and you'll get 2 years worth of blades free with your razor. Just make sure to add them to your cart. That's 100 free blades when you head to hensonshaving.com/birds and use code BIRDS.
Welcome back to Birds with Friends, Bo and Marissa, and professional mistake number 2, as Marissa said
I didn't mean to say it.
during the break for Zach Berman, is that he did not make it back in time for the beginning of the second segment of Birds with Friends. And here he comes, glass in hand, ready to give a toast.
Sorry about that.
That's okay, Zach.
There's no place to get water. I had to go into the meeting room where a meeting's in place. Sorry.
The mistakes keep adding up.
I'm hoping to sleep tonight. This is gonna keep me up.
This is a fancy glass you got there.
Why don't you set up,
Cheers.
Zach? Why don't you set up what's coming this week for the combine?
Okay, so Nick Sirianni and Howie Roseman will speak to us tomorrow. Looking forward to that. As in every year, we get the chance to talk to the head coach and the GM here. And there's an expression, it's lying season, right? They're not going to give you anything
Yeah, this is
substantial.
usually when they tell. I mean, they rarely tell the truth.
Yeah.
This is when they tell the least amount of truth. But
Yeah, but it's a chance. I mean, you're not going to pin them against the wall for, like, or they're not going to give you hard information here. But
Just picturing you pinning Howie against the wall.
but
Zach, stop it! Zach, get off.
but I like to get philosophical stuff. And then honestly, sometimes Howie.
Why did you trade for Kerry Vincent?
Sometimes Howie gives you nuggets here. I mean, this is the site, of course, where
He's in the XFL now.
No, this is the site where, as you and Shield once chronicled, they did the most noble thing a team ever did, which is they
From the bottom of their hearts,
they allowed Nick Foles to become a free agent.
we figured after all he's done for us, we gave him a gift.
Yeah, that occurred. That famously occurred here. So we'll get to hear some updates on the coaching search, the offseason, what's ahead for the Eagles. And then there have been news here, right? They re-signed Brandon Graham here once, as we discussed. They released D'Amico Ryans here once. They made a handful of other small moves or moves of different variety here. So
Not small moves to the people involved.
you're absolutely right about that. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Let me ask you a Bird Lions question.
Bird Lions?
Bird Lions.
Okay.
Over under 70%. The percentage of questions asked to Jonathan Gannon by Philadelphia reporters during
Over.
his press conference.
Over.
You think go easy over?
Easy over. I mean, this is like Chip at the owners' meetings, right?
He's the one who's going to be pinned against the wall. It's going to be. If he's smart, if they're smart, they would put him up at the same time as the Eagles guys, so that we would be distracted. But
Jonathan's a grown man; he can take it. So
sure, but I mean, he doesn't want to be up there answering our questions the whole time. What do you think it's going to be? 85%?
72.
So you go easy over 70, but you're going only 72?
Yeah, I was joking. I don't know. Yeah,
Okay.
80%.
All right.
I'm sure there'll be some national questions. So
How about Steichen? What number would you put that at?
no, I mean this is in Indianapolis, and there's a lot of indie media.
Yeah,
there,
I think you're
so,
looking at 20%.
Yeah.
Okay.
Shane also has more Like he doesn't give long answers. So there's
That's a good point.
it's a
Yeah,
15
more
minute-
questions.
It's a yeah.
That's a good point.
Now, Nick can give 3 answers in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
if there's like an Ohio reporter here who asks about Mount Union or Larry Karras, there's going to be nothing on the coaching search.
Mhm. Well, we're gonna make sure that doesn't happen.
In any event,
Talking about getting pinned against the wall.
So we will talk to them tomorrow. Then the interviews for the players are Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. They changed the order this year. Actually, they changed the order essentially so they can have the workouts for the quarterbacks on prime time on the weekend. But what that means for us is that we'll have a chance to talk to the defensive players earlier in the week. Usually, the first day is quarterbacks, and it's offensive players the first 2 days, defensive players the next 2 days. This year it's reversed. And so we there's a misconception in the past at least that when we go to the combine, we're like there at the workouts. Actually, my understanding is this year we're allowed at the workouts.
Oh.
But traditionally, we're just talking to the players, we're talking to the coaches, we're talking to the GMs, but we're watching the workouts on television. And I think they opened that up this year. But anyways, this is more of an event to talk to people, to get information, to get rumors, to get gossip, to get and then to get exposure to the players as well. So look forward to that. Look forward to getting a chance to talk to the defensive players. I won't be here for the offensive guys, but I'll be here for the defensive guys.
Okay, Marissa, what are you doing?
I'll be here all week, so if there's anything you guys need from me while you guys aren't here,
Tip
happy
your
to
waiters.
help. I did check Andre Yoshivas what time he was
Oh, how is it?
talking. I think it's later in the week. I don't think people are going to be here, but
That's too bad.
when I was
He's
thinking
gonna
pod stuff,
run a blazing 40.
yeah.
If you did a mock draft, would you have projected him to the Eagles
Yeah, probably.
just to get the Brian Flynn mention in there? We're gonna have
Get the SEO. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
The point of doing a mock draft at this stage of the offseason, to me, preposterous. But that's okay.
So we did.
I understand it for teams with like top 5 picks,
Yeah.
but okay.
So we did a beat writer mock draft last week, and what that is
And you did a big board.
and the big board. Yes, the beat writer mock draft is
And a scouting combine preview.
no, I did a mailbag.
Mailbag. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Well, I did the 7-round mock draft, but the beat writer mock draft was interesting because you were making that decision in real time. We have a Slack channel.
Yeah, that one's fun. I like
Yeah,
that. I like the beat
So
writer
I had
mock
to
draft.
play the part of Howie Roseman, and I was on the board at 10, and I was at that point.
And I played the part of Tom Domino.
So at that point, Miles Murphy was on the board. Miles Murphy, for those who don't know, he's an edge rusher from Clemson, an athletic freak. I'm curious to see how he tests. Didn't have prolific production at Clemson, but had solid production. Was a huge recruit coming out of high school, and he's one of the top edge rushers in this class. The Eagles. There were also 2 of the top 3 corners on the board there, and then there were offensive linemen on the board too. I took Miles Murphy. I think I leaned when I said when in doubt, go with the lines of scrimmage. And by the way, the Eagles. I have a number. I don't have it in front of me here, but the amount of snaps they had at edge rusher that weren't Josh Sweat and Hassan Reddick is really high.
Sure.
The Eagles need a third edge rusher next
Yeah.
year, right? So Miles Murphy there, and then 30, I took a cornerback, Emmanuel Forbes from Mississippi State, who the term draft crush goes around. Of the corners who aren't like the top ones, I really like Emmanuel Forbes. Emmanuel Forbes set the college football or set the FBS
Grandson
record.
of Steve.
He's not the grandson of Steve. He set the FBS record for pick sixes. He's really good ball skills. Some of them were like tip passes. If you're watching Will Levis highlights, okay, and you're watching Will Levis lowlights, Will Levis threw a pass that like Emmanuel Forbes just read it, jumped in front of it, pick 6.
He lost that race war.
That's a good callback. So I took Emmanuel Forbes at number 30. The knock on Emmanuel Forbes is the same knock that Devontae Smith had. He's like really thin. He was listed at 170 something pounds. That wouldn't scare me off, right? When you can play the way he does. So I'm curious to see as we learn more, we're still in the early stages of learning about these players. But I had him at 30. So that was the beat writer mock draft. And then the next day, I had the 7th-round mock draft, the infamous 7th round mock draft now. And I intentionally wanted and purposely.
You're giving away the goods for free, my man.
Well, I wanted to have a different combination here. And so this one I went with the corner in the first at 10. And
make people read the story.
I went with an edge rusher at 30. You can check that out. You can see the combinations of running back in the 2nd round. You can check that out. But this is what I'm trying to – it's all a way of saying this. It would shock me, absolutely shock me if one of those 2 picks aren't traded, right?
Oh,
traded
for sure.
up, traded back.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely.
So the other part of doing mock drafts now is like they're going to trade. 30 – if you use the example from 2018, they were drafting at 32 that year, and they moved back with the Ravens. They got a 2nd rounder, the following year, and they exchanged 4th rounders. They moved up in the 4th round. And what happened at that point was the Eagles had a bucket of pass catchers they were looking at, and they thought from that bucket when you're drafting at 28, the guy you're drafting at, when you're drafting at 30, the guy you're looking at 30 is probably comparable to the player you're be thinking at 35, let's say, or 38, right? You're drafting, you have a bucket of players there. And it's a little different at 10. But at 10, where the Eagles are drafting, if a quarterback slips, if Anthony Richardson slips, or if Will Levis slips, that pick all of a sudden becomes really valuable. And also in, I believe, 2018, Josh Rosen was in the draft. The Cardinals traded up from 15 to 10. The Raiders traded back. They got an extra 3rd, an extra 5. So something to think about with the Eagles, who don't have, at this point, a 4th-round pick, a 5th-round pick, or a 6th-round pick.
Okay.
And then as far as players, look, we'll have months to talk about or weeks to talk about the draft. But
take it easy.
What?
Go ahead.
If there's,
You're saying we don't need to do 20 minutes on Miles Murphy today.
Okay, yeah. If there are any draft specific questions in the chat, I'd be happy to address them. But we can move on to.
I have one draft question for you.
Yeah,
because it's a player who you did not mock in your 8 mock drafts, did not land with the Eagles in any of them. Because to me, I think if I had to write down a name today who I would guess, just based on the things that I've read and knowing what the Eagles do, if I had to guess one name who they would take at 10, I think it would be Paris Johnson.
Interesting. Okay.
Wow.
The Ohio State offensive lineman. Now, you did not have an offensive lineman there in any of the ones that you
I
did.
did 2 of them. Okay. That's not.
Because to me, it fits you got a top 10 pick, use it on a premium position. You need a long-term replacement for Lane Johnson. He could play guard today. It's like it fits all the check marks of a Howie Roseman pick. I don't know enough about him as a player.
Great point. Thought strongly about it. Not ruling it out. Definitely think offensive line is in play there. It's a great point. He was on the big board. Okay. And I wrote about that. Okay. And look, Paris Johnson Jr., I got to admit, on a personal level, might be my favorite player in this draft.
Really? Why?
Paris Johnson Jr.
Is he from your hometown?
No, Paris Johnson Jr. is a journalism major.
Oh, yeah.
We've
talked about this.
Who wrote for Ohio State student newspaper.
He's out.
The field day Zach would have.
Off the board.
Wrote for the student newspaper.
You remember the last?
He wrote for the Lantern, I believe.
You remember the last journalism guy who they took?
The last journalism guy who they took?
Jeff Owens.
That was a little before my.
Although it actually turned out to be Brandon Boykin in the same draft.
Brandon Boykin was a journalism guy too.
That's what I just said. Didn't he?
You said he turned out to be Brandon
because
Boykin?
he got into the business. I don't think he was a journalism guy.
Well, Brandon Boykin was a broadcast journalism major.
Was he?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a good pick.
Well, still, Jeff Owens was the more recent one then because he was the 7th round pick.
Okay.
So still accurate.
Yeah. So fair enough. But yeah, Paris Johnson Jr., a journalism major at Ohio State.
But he's not from Philly?
He's not from Philly. No.
That can't be your favorite. I mean,
there's some.
I think if the Eagles draft Paris Johnson, I'm going to do a company paid for a trip to Paris to get the scouting report on Paris Johnson.
He's not from Paris, but I wouldn't put it past you. Yeah.
I'm just going to go around and ask people what they think of Paris Johnson. Bonjour, bonjour.
Okay.
I don't know.
Who would be your favorite player they picked at 10?
Oh, I have no idea. This is
Andre
the beginning.
Cycles,
This is the
yeah.
beginning of my process. Like, I want to get these numbers, then I can put them into my database, then I can watch them.
Ooh, you have a database?
Yeah, I got some databases.
Ooh,
Yeah,
fancy.
he's got a wide receiver bucket.
Yeah, I got some buckets. Got some
Yeah.
databases.
Yeah.
We got to get this data.
Yeah, so I spent a lot of last week looking at draft prospects. A little behind on it, admit that. But honestly, free agencies before the draft, and we're not talking about the Eagles right now as like players in free agency. Bo had the top 10, the Eagles top 10 free agent, or top 12, I think you had free agents. That
I think it might have gone to 14 potentially.
14. Okay.
Who knows? They got a lot of free agents.
Yeah, they have. So I think that's going to be the priority. Up on the Athletic now, and you see Bo's working there.
Flu
is-
World Order. We got
No, the Athletics top 150 is up right now of free agents, and Bo has.
It is?
Yes,
Oh,
and Bo has write-ups for all the Eagles guys in there.
how did they rank them?
I mean, I don't want to tell how the chicken's made here or the sausage is made.
Why would you go with chickens?
I don't know.
When a hen loves a rooster.
Oh, geez.
Sorry about that.
The whole idea of replacing sausage is to make it not meat.
it was a poor.
You went chicken.
If I could be self-deprecating here, if I could be self-deprecating.
Let's tell us how the cow is made.
So I once I was describing someone one time in college, and you know the term "salt of the earth."
Mm-hmm.
I guess I screw up the term. I call them dirt of the earth. I was like, yeah, this guy's a real. I said it in like the most earnest way possible. I was like, yeah. I was like, he's the exact kind of guy you'd want to work with. He's like real dirt of the earth. Yeah, that was a mistake. Yeah,
Do you want to reveal who you were talking about?
no, I definitely don't. Yeah, I've always felt so. Whenever I hear that term, salt of the earth,
That's a good one. That might be a drop.
Yeah, that was that. Oh, look, I have no problem making fun of myself. That was.
That's so good.
Yeah, that was a
That's
bad
what they
one.
say about Mr. Gonzalez. Little dirt of the earth. I mean, I got nothing else to add. That's a good way to close it.
So yes, no. So free agency is before then. The Eagles have a lot of prominent free agents. I don't expect the Eagles to be very active in adding other free agents.
Hey, I have
Do
a
you?
question for you. Jalen Ramsey. Would you trade the 31st pick for Jalen Ramsey?
Well, Jalen Ramsey wants a new contract too, from what I understand, right? So I wouldn't trade for him, then give him a new deal. But if you can get him on his current deal,
He's 28 years old.
yeah, if you can get him on his current deal, that would certainly be interesting to me, right? If you have him on his current deal, the cap obligation is a different story. But would you? If
I don't think
if
so.
you had to give him a new deal,
Yeah, I don't think so.
yeah. It was in the mailbag today. Do I anticipate an AJ Brown like trade this year? And the answer is no, I don't, because I really think, look, the Eagles have 6 picks in the first 2 rounds the next 2 years. I know they have other picks too, but I think those 6 picks really, you're not gonna go 6 of 6. But these picks really need to be a lifeblood for adding starting caliber talent for you over these next few years, because the Eagles are going to be in a position where they're going to pay Jalen Hurts a lot of money this offseason, right? Devontae Smith, he's going to get paid soon. I actually listened to a good podcast recently with AJ Brown.
Oh, yeah, I listened to that one.
Yeah, that was a good
This one I actually listened to.
Yeah, you should give a shout out to the name of the podcast.
Go ahead.
I
don't remember the name of it.
It was a really good one. And I want to give proper credit. I should have that.
Okay. Anyway, the point is they have a lot. They also have a lot of holes to fill, and so not even just in terms of like fitting a big contract under the cap. They got a lot of spots to fill.
Yes, thank you.
The
Yep.
Raw Room
The
podcast.
Raw Room podcast. Yep. And so I think that they're, Yeah, they're really gonna have to build some of these roster spots in internally here. Fill some of these spots internally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
One I was gonna say here.
Did you get something for me on the plane?
Did I get something for you on the plane?
Well, you said you got one thing left. I don't know.
No,
I got you something.
a pretzel wrapper.
And he just got
It has
salt.
the
He
crumbs.
just got salt all over his
Salt.
iPad.
Nice salt of the earth gift, right?
Yeah. He's a real salt of the earth.
Yeah. I was gonna ask you here. CJ Gardner Johnson. Well, do you think the Eagles could give him the franchise tag? The franchise tag deadline comes up in the next.
I would be very surprised if they gave him the franchise tag. It doesn't make a lot of sense cap wise. It doesn't strike me as a good. I don't know. He's going to be a good soldier and show up on that tag.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it makes a lot of sense. What about you?
No. The only. I mean, if they're insistent on keeping him, then I don't think they have any intention of him playing next year on the tag. But if he's the guy they want, and you tag him, and there's a cap hold on it, and then you do that to buy time to work out a deal, so he doesn't hit the open market, I wouldn't roll that out. I mean, teams use the cap as a holding strategy. They use the tag as a holding strategy. I could see that, but I don't think they have any intention of CJ Gardner Johnson playing on the tag next year. My guess is that they don't tag him.
I have a lot of flu world order related questions
Okay.
I'd like to talk to you about, but I feel like
We'll
it's got to
wait
be
for
part
that.
of the discussion of flu world order.
Last thing, the Jalen Hurts contract. Do you think this happens before free agency, or do you think Lamar Jackson gets signed first and sets the market?
That's a good question.
There's Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert.
I think the history tells us that it's always better to do it first, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the Eagles have always, under Jeffrey Lurie, paid the quarterback as soon as they could.
Yep.
Right. So I mean, he's going to get paid this offseason. Maybe it doesn't happen before the new league year, but yeah, I don't know how to predict what's going to happen with Lamar Jackson. But I would not be surprised if he's the first big contract doled out this offseason.
And could you see a situation where it's a Patrick Mahomes-like deal where they really try to use years? They're like, we're going to give you more money than you can possibly fathom, but we're going to lock you in for a long period of time to bring down that cap number.
I would be surprised if they're just because of his playing style, if they're going to give him, if they would give him like a guaranteed number for like 6 years out. That feels like a stretch to me. Yeah. I also don't think he's going to get it's not going to be front loaded because he's still going to be on a second round contract next year, right? It's going to be it's going to be the guarantees up front, the signing bonus, and then it's all going to be. They always push everything out into the future.
Absolutely.
So I don't know. Do you disagree?
No, just there's different in other sports, it's like the years are advantageous to the player. In football, the years are advantageous to the team, right? Like it benefits the player to go with the shorter deal in football than the 10, 12-year deal. If you're if you're a baseball player.
Well, sort of, because there's also a higher risk of injury. So if you're getting guarantees pushed out far enough, that's good. But if you're Patrick Mahomes, the market keeps resetting itself.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think Jalen Hurts is at the next level of quarterbacks right now, but I think there are probably some reasonable questions about his long-term staying power.
And I mean, but if you're Jalen Hurts too, and you say, look, I know I'm going to get paid. Let's see what Lamar Jackson comes in at. Let's see what Justin Herbert comes in at. Let's see what Joe Burrow comes in at. The flip side, you can also say, look, am I really going to turn down $45, $50 million a year? I mean,
that's Michael Dunn money. Did he make our top 150? He better have.
Honestly, I was walking.
I'll keep scrolling.
I was walking over and it was raining.
Top 50. Right behind Sayamalo, I'd say.
So people in the chat want to know, you think there could be a potential for Hurts news this week?
I don't think this week.
I think they have too many other things to do this week.
Okay, so not during the combine.
I would be pretty shocked.
I'd be shocked.
They got to hire these coordinators first.
Okay. Yeah. So the coordinators definitely first before.
I would think so.
Okay.
And they probably got to get home too. Yeah, talk it over with some people back home.
Okay.
What?
Well, who are you talking about? Emily?
Oh, Jeffrey.
Well, yeah, but they can talk to Jeffrey
True,
about it.
True.
I believe he has working internet.
True. Fair.
Okay. All right. Well, what a ride. That'll do it for this episode of Birds with Friends. We'll be back tomorrow afternoon. That's Tuesday after Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni have spoken. Rough plan for about 5 p.m. on Tuesday. So hopefully we'll see you then. For Zach and Marissa and Miles Murphy, we thank you for listening and watching. We will talk to you tomorrow. And as always, we love you.